Big breaking news out of the NFL, and it is very entertaining. Philip Rivers coming out of retirement, signing with the Colts practice squad. That is the latest from our Jonathan Jones. We're about to talk to him in just a second here. 44 years old, Philip Rivers turned 44 years old actually just yesterday on December 8th. Last played in the NFL, it was with Indy during the 2020 COVID season. Now, this news comes after Daniel Jones suffered a season-ending torn Achilles. Backup Riley Leonard is dealing with a knee injury. Rivers, by the way, a semifinalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026. So if he does sign with the active roster, his 5-year clock will reset. So let's welcome in NFL expert, NFL insider Jonathan Jones here to talk about this news. Look, everybody was buzzing when we found out that the Colts were going to work about. Now he's signed to the practice squad. What can we expect from this entire situation?
Look, he's going to practice, Philip Rivers is, on Wednesday. And then hopefully his body feels great. And then he's going to practice on Thursday. And hopefully his body feels great. And he's going to practice on Friday. Amanda, here's what I'll tell you. I will not at all be surprised if Philip Rivers takes every first-team rep this week at practice for the Indianapolis Colts. I will not at all be surprised. At this point, had you asked me this 24 hours ago, I would be surprised. I will not at all be surprised if Philip Rivers starts this upcoming Sunday for the Indianapolis Colts. 44 years young, high school football coach, grandfather, Pro Football Hall of Fame semifinalist. Philip Rivers, I truly believe all indications right now, he has to get through the practice week. He has to get through it healthy. His hamstring has to stay on the bone, okay? But I think he's going to start this weekend against the Seattle Seahawks. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. We see right there, 44 years old, coming back. You know, one name that's not on this list, Steve DeBerg, who before Tom Brady came around was the oldest quarterback in NFL history. When he came out of retirement after 5 years, he joined the 1998 Atlanta Falcons. It had been 5 years since he had previously played. So this is the closest analog that we have. But he wasn't going to play the week that he got signed. And I think that's what we're looking at right now. Riley Leonard, the backup to Daniel Jones, is banged up with that knee. Brett Rippon is there on the practice squad. But clearly, if they felt good about Brett Rippon, I don't think that they'd be calling Philip Rivers out of retirement. So once he got the call, once he felt good enough to get on a plane, once he felt good enough to have this workout, all things are leading to Philip Rivers actually making his on-field return after 5 years this weekend against the Seattle Seahawks.
As you just mentioned, look, it's against the Seahawks, and we'll talk here in a second about how difficult the Colts' remaining schedule is. The question is, what sort of shape is he in? How does his arm look? We just had Pete and Kyle on, and they said he's a coach. He's got a bunch of kids he's running after. They have full confidence, just being the competitor that he is, that he's probably in pretty good shape. Do you know anything about what he may look like?
Yeah, I think he's in great shape relative to other 44-year-olds walking in America, okay? I think that he is in good enough shape to go out there and sling it on the practice field. I don't know how effective, how athletic, how well he's going to be able to move around out there on the field on Sunday. We got to be honest about it, right? This is a fun, this is a crazy story. When this broke last night, I'm getting texts from around the league. People can't believe it. Folks are laughing about it. Folks are also saying, well, the Colts had to do something, right? And Chris Ballard with this sort of team with the Colts, yeah, he has to exhaust every option. But I don't know how successful Philip Rivers can be on the field, okay? It has been 5 years, and it wasn't like he was moving around extremely well 5 years ago, okay? So we have to keep this within proper context and maybe not let our excitement get in the way of what we know about this sport and about the age, right? So that's gonna be a big question here. Is he going to master the mental part? Look, he knows the playbook. There's no question he knows the playbook. He had worked with Shane Steichen for about 7 years, back when the Chargers were in San Diego, when they moved to LA. And so he is very familiar with what the calls are gonna be. But in terms of getting fully up to speed, quite literally, that is a huge, huge ask of Philip Rivers. Ultimately, He is the best available option to the Colts. That is what they have decided. Now, in texting with folks around the league, they've said maybe, and this is hindsight, Amanda, but maybe the Colts, after Anthony Richardson injured his eye in week 6, maybe they should have went out and tried to trade for a veteran before the trade deadline at the start of November. They had a few weeks. They knew Anthony Richardson wasn't going to be ready. They had Riley Leonard, but if something happens to Daniel Jones, be it for the season or be it for a couple weeks, is that enough for a team that at the time was competing for the number 1 spot in the AFC? So there's some hindsight involved there, but there's also some wisdom involved there. There's also a question about how we develop quarterbacks in today's NFL, that the Colts in the second week of December thought that their best option at quarterback was to go get the guy who's been retired for 5 years. But ultimately, the options that are available to the Colts, this is the one they chose because they think it's the best one.
You mentioned Shane Steichen. Phillip Rivers is 4 years older than him. Shane Steichen is 40. He is actually older than 14 of the current 32 head coaches in the league. So just an interesting stat there. So let's talk about the Colts. Look, they're sitting third in their division. As we mentioned, this is the team that everybody was chasing for a while in the AFC. No longer. Their remaining schedule is just brutal as you take a look at it there. Seahawks, 49ers, Jags, Texans, all of those teams as of now would be in the playoffs if the season were to end today. JJ, how difficult is it for the Colts to try to make the postseason at this point?
It's really, really hard. It was hard if they had Daniel Jones. Now, Amanda, I've been on this kick the last couple weeks that the Colts were most likely to miss the playoffs because we could see the way things were trending. We could see the defenses were adjusting. They were keying in on Jonathan Taylor and they were saying, Daniel Jones, go ahead and beat us with your arm. So what do you think is going to happen now that you have someone who's almost 20 years, Daniel Jones' senior, right, who has never had the arm that Daniel Jones has? They're going to go out there and say, okay, Phillip Rivers, beat us with your arm. Because the last thing that the Seattle Seahawks, right, or the Houston Texans or the San Francisco 49ers or the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to do is allow Jonathan Taylor to rush for 250 yards on him, right? There is no way that these 4 defenses that they are facing will allow Jonathan Taylor to dictate terms to them. They will load up the box and just dare Phillip Rivers to win. And if they wind up losing that way, well, that's just the way they're going to have to lose. You see right here, all 4 of these teams not only in the playoffs right now, but have aspirations beyond just simply getting into the playoffs. So they're not going to take the Colts lightly, but I can tell you that the teams at the top of that schedule right now, yesterday, last night, this morning, they did not think that they were going to be facing Phillip Rivers coming up soon. And now it is a very, very real possibility, and Amanda, if not a probability, that Phillip Rivers is going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts moving forward.
JJ, final thing here, and you have a vote on this, comeback player of the year. He has already been added to the odds when it comes to several of the sports books. You get Christian McCaffrey, Aiden Hutchinson, Stephon Diggs. Those are the favorites there. He's 11-1 right now. I mean, it's a long shot, but a hell of a story to even put him in that conversation.
Look, a couple years ago, the voters absolutely got it wrong by voting Joe Flacco as the comeback player of the year over Damar Hamlin, who made the greatest comeback in human history in 2 millennia. But they did set a precedent. That old guy at quarterback who plays a couple games and plays well and gets his team into the playoffs can win comeback player of the year. So we have that precedent. I personally did not vote for Joe Flacco, would not have voted for Joe Flacco, and won't in hindsight. But is that group of 50 voters, if Phillip Rivers plays well over these 4 games, if the Indianapolis Colts work their way back into playoff contention, could he win comeback player of the year over the names that you just mentioned? I think absolutely it is a possibility. And depending on how well he plays, how he can potentially carry the Colts, because again, I, a voter, do not believe that the Colts will make the playoffs and haven't for the last couple of weeks. And so if he proves me wrong, then my goodness, might have to vote for him.
Why not? Why not? Jonathan Jones, we appreciate your time, all of your insight into this very interesting and entertaining situation there. So the Colts right now sitting with the 8th seed. They are the first team out of the playoffs as of right now. According to our partners at Sportsline, they have less than a 50% chance to make the postseason. Obviously, also given what their schedule looks like, they're sitting 3rd in their division. But you never know. Phillip Rivers is back.